Today we're going to be looking at the poem called Once Upon a Time by Gabriel Okara. And before we actually move on to looking at the poem and the author himself, I just want to show you a quick agenda or the purpose of this particular screencast. So the purpose of this screencast, number one, is to understand the poet's background, so just a little bit about Gabriel Okara, and also to understand what the poem is about, so the meaning and what the poem is telling us. And also to analyse the language devices used in this particular poem. Obviously the rest, such as structural devices, imagery, you will be studying in lessons, or you'll have to do it on your own. So just a little bit about the author, and what I want you to do is just to make sure that you are taking these particular notes down, or at least that you are memorising some of these or some of this information. So Gabriel Okara was born in 1921. And he was a Nigerian poet and novelist whose verse had been translated into several languages by early 1960s. So he was a largely self-educated man. And also, Kara's poetry is based on a series of contrasts. And in this particular poem, it is African culture and Western society and the differences. But this poem could also be translated and looked as if Okara is criticising childhood versus adult life and the contrast within those particular ideas. So, your first reading activity is to actually read the poem out loud. And what I want you to do after you've read it out loud, and maybe do it several times to just get the meaning about it before I tell you about the meaning, is to actually think about these questions as well. So number one, who is talking in the poem? And also, who's the person addressing? Now I want you to pause this particular screencast, and when you've done these things, I want you to press play again. So good luck. Now we're going to be looking at the meaning of the poem. So this poem is about the artificiality of relationships and manners prevailing in the present day world. The past, according to the poet, is better than the present because there were love, sincerity and faithfulness in the past. Now he thinks that everything has changed, and hence the poet wants to relive the past. But we can also look at this poem as if the author is condemning the hypocrisy of adults, as they are like machines constrained by rules and conventions. Also, they have masks for everything, such as lying, cheating and betraying. We can see the childhood is portrayed in a positive light, because when we're looking at stanza 7, that's the tone that we get, while being an adult and having these rules and having to adhere to these rules is a very negative idea. So we're going to be looking at stanza 1 to 7, and we're going to be analysing. It would be a good idea for you to have a highlighter and a pen. So highlight all these quotations or all these lines, and then make sure that you write and annotate your anthologies. So we can see that I underlined or colour-coded words such as laugh, eyes as well. So we can see that this is repetition of laugh and eyes. Also, in green, I'm also underlining ice block cold, okay, and this is a simulating effect, so it's just saying that their eyes were as cold as ice, okay, so these people did not have kind eyes, but rather he compares it to ice. Also, what is quite interesting is that this particular poem starts almost like a fairy tale, and it also grabs our attention, and it's really interesting because it actually contrasts with the ideas presented in the poem. And we also find out that this poem is addressed to his son. So, moving on to stanza 2. So we have underlined in purple, so they, their, they and there again. So also repetition of there, they is almost to separate himself from them, so the Western society, who are now greedy and machine-like, and also maybe to separate himself from adults who are possibly corrupt. And also looking at the last line of this particular stanza, Okara says, now they shake hands without hearts, while their left hand search my empty pockets. So obviously they're quite greedy. And also in pink we have emphasis on time, and that particular time has gone by. The people and the society have changed now, but before they were just like him. So emphasis on time. Stanza 3, we can see that this particular stanza, Okara gives a voice to it. So Okara gives a voice to the Western society and shows that he's not used to this formality. For example, when people say "come again," they might just be polite, okay? And when they are being just polite, he finds that the doors are shut on him. So therefore, when they invite him time and time again, maybe they don't necessarily want to see him again, but they're just being polite, and he doesn't really understand why people are doing this. And he's also telling his son that to watch out because people are not sincere as they seem to be. Moving on to stanza 4, so let's have a look at the yellow. So we can see that Okara has learned to be like the people that he criticizes, and also that he's actually not afraid to admit this in stanza 4. We see that he's criticizing himself and the people as well. Remember, in the previous stanza, he didn't want to be associated with them. He also says them, but now it says, I have learned to wear many faces. Okay, and also look at the compound words used to show the different faces that he might have. So home face, office face, street face, host face, and cocktail face. And now we can see that he's almost, he has turned into one of them, and he has a portrait smile, so a smile that is not sincere anymore, and he doesn't necessarily show his feelings or his true feelings anymore. Stanza 5. And the whole of the stanza is the poet explaining what he has learned so far. So we can see that his true feelings are disguised by the rules that he has to show in society. And I want you to quickly just look at these particular rules that he has disguised and what he actually, when he says these particular things, what he means. Stanza 6. I want you to look at the I, the repetition of first person. So we can see the narrator regrets learning these rules and now admits to being one of them. Okay, so he says, I want to be what I used to be when I was like you. Okay, so repetition of first person. Also, when he talks about muted things, he's referring that all these rules that hide his personality. As we previously looked in stanza 5, and I asked you to look at what he says and what he actually means, so these muted things. And also the last line in stanza 6, he's using a simile to compare his teeth to snakes' fangs, and also we have very negative connotations of a snake. Stanza 7, we can see that here the author is asking his son to help him to return to being sincere, and also the innocence that he has lost over the years. These pure qualities can only be found in childhood or children. And we can see that he's almost asking, he's almost, so show me, son, how to laugh, show me how I used to laugh and smile. Okay, it's quite a negative, but also we might have hope now that he's asking, he's understanding what he needs to do, and therefore he's asking the son to show him, to lead the way to where he can be pure and can return to be innocent and actually say what he means. So now we're going to just finish the screencast, and what I want you to do is just to think about these 4 questions. So why do you think the poet has given it the title Once Upon a Time to this particular poem? Why does the poet repeat hearts and faces throughout the poem? What effect does this poem create? And also, how does it make you feel? What I want you to do is just think about these ideas, and if you can at all, make some notes, so maybe then you can discuss this in your English lesson.